Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return for the big match preview ahead of Spurs once again returning to Europe against, here we go, let me go for it. This is, can I just say, credit to Paul Newman, bless his heart. Paul's back with us here for a long, long time. Ferencváros to come on Thursday in the Europa League. Believe me, I've been trying to say that for hours in the mirror. And then Paul gave me a completely different abbreviation of what they were going to be called in the name. So we'll just roll with that. It sounds great. It sounds brilliant. We're joined by three great guests to Last Word on Spurs. One making their debut. What a time to making your debut on this show. Firstly, back on the show, always smiling, which is a good sign. Mitch Fretton's back. Mitch, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Ricky. I really, I'm starting to, now that we're back in the Europa League, I think I'm making it a weekly thing where I'm starting to look forward to your pronunciations of the teams.
Oh
I really enjoyed Carrier Bag last week, and I've enjoyed this one this week as well. But no, yeah, really happy, obviously, after the weekend. And yeah, I love it when we're playing every few days because it's just always something to look forward to. So yeah, looking forward to chatting about it and just Tottenham in general with obviously yourself and a great panel as well.
Bless you. I'm glad you're enjoying them. I'm not sure if I'm enjoying pronouncing them. Joining Mitch back on the show. God, it's been a while. We've got the brilliant look. He's respected journalist out there that many would have followed his work throughout the years. And my God, so pleased to have him back on Last One on Spurs. Hopefully more to come from this man on here. But tonight to welcome Paul Newman back to Last One on Spurs. Paul, the last time you was on, you reminded me, was the Nuno days. What's happened since?
It was, Ricky, and thank you very much for that kind introduction. All I can remember is that I said we should be keeping faith with Nuno, so I'm not surprised you haven't invited me back for the last 2 years or whatever it is, actually. But I always try to be upbeat, and at that stage, I had no idea that Conte was round the corner. So at that moment, I thought we might as well stick with this guy. But then came Conte. It was all lovely for first, wasn't it? And then it all ended horribly. So I'm just pleased that I'm on after such a fantastic win on Sunday. It makes a very pleasant change that I can talk very positively and very much enjoy the next hour and a half or however long we're going to be on for.
Amen. Do you know what I love about Paul there? He assumed hour and a half. Just assumed it'd be hour and a half. I won't try and get you too much longer than an hour and a half or less than an hour and a half. But Paul, lovely to have you back on. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And making her debut. Oh, she's around the YouTube scene. Same as Mitch. These are two around the YouTube scene. Kate, just a girl who loves Spurs. Kate, welcome to Last One on Spurs. Enjoying your debut. How are you? Well?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. I was very taken aback and very honoured to be invited on such a prestigious channel, award-winning channel.
You're too kind.
And it's like Paul said, what a time to come on when Tottenham are on a winning streak. It couldn't be any better.
I totally agree. And it's so typical that Spurs look like they're having an upturn in form, and I'm losing my voice. So that might be a good thing for a lot of the viewing audience and listeners that can't stand my takes. But it does mean you're going to hear a lot more from the guests than me, which probably that's what you're tuning in for anyway. Let's not get away from it. You're tuning more for the guests than me anyway. So I'll let you be the judge of that. But Paul, we'll start with you because you was there at Old Trafford on Sunday where Spurs, it's one of the most convincing, if not the most convincing performance of Ange Postecoglou's tenure so far in charge at Spurs. A real good 3-0 away win, which, to be fair, I think we've all got to say, look, as bad as Manchester United was, Spurs, don't let anybody tell you otherwise, national media and so, Spurs made them look as bad as that. Paul, how was it being there when I say to you, look, we had 24 shots on that United goal. We had a defence blocking another 7 efforts as well. The away side sent 10 shots our way, but although having 61% of possession, Spurs pretty much it was all one side, and it is now 4 wins on the bounce, and it feels like a really significant win. How do you feel about it, Paul, for you?
Absolutely incredible win, Ricky, and it was an absolute privilege to be there. I felt very lucky to be there. It was one of the most memorable performances I can remember in many a year, actually. Certainly the best of the Ange era, I believe. I was actually invited up by someone I know who works for Man United, so I wasn't sitting with the Spurs fans, so that made it very hard to control my emotions. I was sitting behind the goal, just to the right of the Spurs fans, so I couldn't celebrate too much when we scored, but it was lovely to see all the anxiety around me of all the United fans who was getting increasingly frustrated by their team. But it was brilliant. It was just a fantastic performance, and I have remained upbeat this season. Actually, I know you've had your reservations. I'm a regular listener, and I can understand that. And a lot of my friends felt the same. But I just felt that it was going to come. Maybe not as spectacular as it did on Sunday. I thought, we were desperately unlucky not to beat Leicester and Newcastle. We were putting in the performances, but the chances weren't coming and the goals weren't coming. But as soon as Solanke got fully fit, as soon as Johnson started firing, the defence are looking so good now, really, even despite the high line. When Van der Ven and Romero are at their best, I think they can cope with anything that's thrown at them. So I just think it was fantastic, a terrific performance, and 4 wins on the trot now. Long may it continue. I really hope this is the start of something big, and we may look back on that when we got away with it at Coventry, and that Jed Spence equaliser maybe as Ange's Mark Robins moment, and away we go. And certainly, I know after we beat Villa 4-0 towards the end of last season, we all thought we were going to finish 4th. We all thought that was lift off, and it all unravelled horribly after that. So as long as something like that doesn't happen again, obviously we're Spurs, so we always fear the worst. But I just hope this is the start of something big. I really do.
Yeah, I totally agree on that, Paul. And like I say, echoing those words for sure. You know what Paul says there, come around the UK, can this be the start of something special? I think what was key for me when I look at the back of last season, we had that tremendous 4-0 win away to Aston Villa at Villa Park. And you know what? I thought that would be the moment Spurs would really, pardon the pun, really spur us on and push on for a top 4 finish. And obviously we saw the week after that for a really damaging defeat to Fulham, a 3-0 defeat, and we never really recovered from that moment. How important is it, Kate, that although it's a great win at United, it is important to keep feet on the ground, and we allow that win to be a springboard and a catalyst for hopefully now a real run of games? Because like we say, we're in the midst of 4 wins in a row. We're playing, of course, Ferencvaros on Thursday, a game that you'd like to think Spurs, although they'll probably do a bit of heavy rotation there, should be able to come through. Brighton as well, that haven't been in the most greatest of form recently. It is an opportunity, Kate, where we don't just sit on our laurels with that performance and result. We really now use that as a catalyst to come for the upcoming games.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't like to tempt fate, but I do feel like we have turned a corner. And I was saying to Paul, I can really see what Ange is doing, and you can see the players have bought into it 100%. There was talk that Ange had lost the dressing room. I mean, what a load of nonsense. These guys are playing out of their skin for this manager. I really think, without being the kiss of death, this could be the start of something really special. Kulu's a different gravy. Now he's moved to the middle. Mickey van der Ven, I mean, when people say generational talent, I think this guy, I mean, I was saying to Paul, I spoke to Mickey Hazard on the phone this morning because we do a lot of work for his charity. And he said if Van der Ven stays with Tottenham, he will end up being the greatest centre-back to have ever played for Spurs, better than Roberts, any of those. He said he's magnificent. Maddison started playing really well. Brennan Johnson, after he's deactivated Instagram because of that terrible abuse, he's come back, and it's like he's got a point to prove. It's just so amazing and brilliant to see Tottenham play this way, with the confidence, with a bit of swagger. And yeah, I really think we've got to do what Ange says. We've got to take every game as it comes. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves. And I think the players are doing that as well, because they're not going too over the top or celebrating too much. You can see that they're keeping their feet on the ground. But yeah, I like to think this is the start of something amazing. I'm feeling really positive, and I'm at the front of the Ange train.
I love that. It's actually nice on the show to be at a point where things seem calm and settled. Although I will remind us, Paul did tell us to keep calm and settled under Nuno, bless his heart. And you know what? At the time, I think we were, listen, those first 3 games in, we won 3 out of 3, had manager of the month. Nobody knew, Paul, what was to come in Spurs' next chapter, right? I'm sure you'll tell us that, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt that what's the point in sacking yet another manager at the time? Yeah. That was my feeling at the time. I didn't think we'd be able to get contact.
Yeah,
I know, and I echo something that Jason McGovern said on here a couple of weeks ago. I always think he talks common sense. I mean, I love everybody on this show, but Jason's one of my particular favourites. But he just amazing. Said if we sacked Ange now, we'd be sacking his replacement in 12 months' time or 13 months' time, and then his replacement 13 months after that. We've got to reach the stage where we pick the right man or woman and we stick with them. And we've got that now, I believe, because of he's united the club, hasn't he? The way we play, it's the Spurs way. We love attacking football. We've got the women's team are very much at playing the same way. We're invested in young players. We're giving chances to players from the academy. So And we always must remember what a slow start Arteta made at Arsenal, and how he's come good because they stuck with him for 4 or 5 years. So even I'm sure it's going to be a rocky road from now on. There's certainly going to be ups and downs. It's not going to be all smooth sailing. We know that. But I really do think we need to invest in this now. And as Kate says, I'm right at the front of the train alongside her, and I think we could really go places if we keep the faith, really.
It's getting a busy train, Mitch. Getting a busy train again. Everyone, those that were maybe thinking of getting off at platform 1 are firmly getting back on now, and they're staying on for the journey. Mitch, you know what? You've always been one that's been very, very, I think, level-headed and balanced on this show when it comes to Ange. Philosophical again, that we're in a rebuild. We're in a reset where the manager's going to need time to address certain situations. But what I would say is, what a difference 12 days makes. We have those back-to-back defeats to Newcastle and Arsenal, and then we go to that game in Coventry away where, let's be honest about it, it wasn't the most convincing of performances. I think it left more questions than answers, despite how delighted we was to get through. And I know the manner of it wasn't the most prettiest, but it does feel, Mitch, I don't know if you agree that since that Coventry game, not sure what's happened, but I honestly feel that Ange has tweaked certain things. I'm seeing Pedro Porro a lot more less advanced than what he has been in the most recent games, and the players in general, I feel, look a lot more comfortable in the way they're playing, the system they're playing, the instructions that they're following. Are you getting that feeling as well, Mitch, or is it all just coincidental that the upturn in form has just taken place over these last 12 days?
No, I agree with you. And first of all, I would like to say that I'm more than happy to board that train with Paul and Kate as well. I'm fully on the Ange train as everyone else. So I think we have a full house tonight. But look, I agree with what you said. I think ahead of that Coventry game when the lineups were released, I think me and you were both quite critical and a bit upset with the lineup that he did end up going for with that game, just purely because of the fact that it was just a game that we needed to win, that we had to win, and if we'd have lost it, it would have been absolute chaos. Albeit fans of outside clubs might sit there and think, oh, at the end of the day, it is just the Carabao Cup. I don't think the majority of Spurs really look at it like that these days, with that sort of appetite for silverware that we have.
Apart from me, Mitch, but yeah, I'll let you carry on.
We know how much you love the Carabao Cup, Ricky. It's absolutely fine. But for me, 100% agree with what you said. I think we've seen Ange tweak a lot of things and tweak things that are maybe going under the radar a little bit over the last few weeks. And for me, the big one all of a sudden is we look a lot, in my opinion, less vulnerable in defence. I think regardless as to who we line up with at the back, teams are going to have the odd chance against us, especially, albeit United were really poor on Sunday, they did still have the occasional opportunity because of how high we play, because they have those willing runners in behind, Rashford and Garnacho, Diallo when he came on. They have those types of players. So I just think it's inevitable against a lot of teams. We saw it against Karabag when we went down to 10 men. They were still managing to get in behind us because we were just still playing to that philosophy. So I think there's a balance that Ange is starting to find where he isn't deviating from the way that he likes to play and the way that he likes to set up. But I actually think that his in-game management is becoming a little bit better, and he's starting to recognize the issues that we're having in the games and addressing them. And you mentioned it a second ago, particularly with the fullbacks, maybe not necessarily inverting and getting as high at the moment. I think that's making a huge difference because, to be honest with you, I haven't, apart from the Coventry game, I haven't been massively disappointed with any of the performances we put in this season. It's just, we've talked about it on previous shows. We haven't been able to find the back of a net and we hadn't been clinical in the final third. But I think, as I said last time I was on here, we're now sort of starting to find that clinical edge, and players are coming into form. Solanke, 3-3? Brennan Johnson, 4-4. We've got players now actually able to hit the back of the net. So for me, it looks like we're coming into that period where we will actually start putting runs together and we'll be picking up 3 points instead of 1 point, or losing it to the odd goal, or getting hit on the counter and end up losing the game. So yeah, I think there'll obviously be tougher games than United on Sunday because they were really, really poor. But we made them look poor. And
Yep.
we played our football, and we played to the ability that we could and to the level that we could, and we punished them for it. And on another day, we win that game 6-0 without, sounding too like high up in the clouds. Like I do feel like that could have been a realistic scoreline. So yeah, it's just onwards and upwards, isn't it? The Brighton game is going to be really, really interesting at the weekend because, I think a lot of people are labeling it like the battle of the high lines. So it's going to be a very, very interesting watch. But I'm excited. And the one thing I've always said with Ange is he makes me excited to watch Tottenham. And that hasn't changed one bit since he come in. So, the fact that we're now looking like a cohesive team that can pick up points, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, one of those players, Mitch, that you refer to that are really at the moment finding that form, and I'm sure, Paul, you were absolutely drooling over his performance at Old Trafford, was that of Dejan Kulusevski, who is just quite sensationally just in the form of his life at Spurs at the moment. It's been ironic that we've spent a lot of time trying to find this guy's best position. And it feels like now we've finally found it in terms of moving him in a more central position, almost as like a number 10. And you look at the chances created per 90 for those that are watching this show live and for those on audio. In terms of the Premier League, is actually top in terms of chances created per 90 at 4.11, higher than De Bruyne, higher than Bukayo Saka. And it tells you just the player looks so much more comfortable in the position that he's being played in. And there's no doubt about it that we're now really seeing the best of him. And one thing I was surprised at, Paul, is when you realise this guy, he's only 23. He's the same age as Brennan Johnson, but he's been around for quite a long time. Of course, part of the Juventus side we brought him from that is used to winning and on the big scale as well. Is he almost like a older head put on young shoulders? Because in a way, Paul, he has got a lot of experience now, and I feel we're now finally seeing the best of him. How do you feel about him at the moment?
Absolutely, I think he's our player of the season so far. And on Sunday, it was a near complete performance. Was it 9? It was 9 great chances, I think, on Sunday, wasn't it? Which is the highest anybody in the league this season. And if you remember, Ricky, in the summer, one of Tottenham's prime targets appeared to be a midfielder. We were told about Conor Gallagher. We were told that this was someone this position was someone that. Somewhere that Ange really wanted to strengthen. And then you looked at it and you thought, well, perhaps Saar was very good last year. Basuma was very good. Obviously, Maddison. Is that a position that we really need strengthening? Bentancur. But right in front of our eyes, we had the solution, didn't we? Here we have a guy. In the summer, I was slightly worried as to whether he would fit in with Ange's system. We saw a year of him on the right last year. He's not Ange's sort of winger, is he? He doesn't get to the line and put the ball across like Johnson's been doing so well. And even Timo Werner does, as long as he's not shooting, he's fine. But going back to Kulusevski, I think we've got £100 million midfielder on our hands. I really do. He's just been absolutely magnificent. And when Ange first put him in there with Maddison, you think, wow, that's really attacking. And Bentancur as well. There's not really a number 6, but in effect, it's 2 number 8s, isn't it? It seems with Maddison and Kulusevski, and 2 attacking number 8s and 2 skillful number 8s, and they're just combining so well. And full credit to Kulusevski, as you said, he's only 23. It's extraordinary, really. But for him to be our player of the season, when at the start of the season we thought, has this guy got a future with us, really, as anything more than a squad player? It is fantastic. And that finish as well, he hasn't had enough praise for that finish, has he, on Sunday? It was a magnificent finish. The ball was deflected up. Yeah, there it is on the screens now for those watching. It was absolutely fantastic, and I'm absolutely delighted, really. And I think the guy's going to be an absolute superstar in this position, and without doubt, that he is a first choice midfielder now. I don't want to see him on the right at all. We know he can play false 9 as well, but hopefully there won't be a need for that this season. And he just carries on exactly how he is, because it's, as I say, it's world class.
Yeah, no, he generally is. And do you know what the thing is now, Kate? In a weird, bizarre way, I feel like I've almost stumbled upon our kind of midfield 3 now. You look at the way Maddison looks so much better alongside Kulu, having the 2 general kind of number 8s in there that almost turn into enforcers and number 10s. They look so creative together. Then you've got the composure, the silkiness of Bentancur in there. Do you feel, Kate, we've just finally kind of stumbled upon, like I say, the midfield we've been waiting to see for a while? Because I think it's fair to say, what I think the biggest frustration I think we've seen as fans, and I think Ange has had as well, is trying to work out what his best team is. Now, he'll never come out and say, I've got a best team, because he can't say that, because we're going to be rotating every 3 to 4 days of European involvement. But I think it's important as a manager to know in your mind, what are the players that I feel in my mind are the key players I want to put out on a match day, where that's 8 or 9 of them. I think the midfield is so crucial to any team in terms of the way they want to control games, they want to dominate games. And the greatest thing I thought was, you go back to that performance at Old Trafford, is Spurs absolutely suffocated Manchester United in midfield in that first half. And the Bruno Fernandes, a red card, even though it's been appealed now and he's got off on it, there's no doubt about it that even, I don't think we were too concerned. We were so dominative with United that didn't really change much. Yes, United improved in the second half. They were with 10. But is that a testament to now Spurs finding this midfield trio for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kulu's made himself undroppable at the minute. I think he's playing out of his skin. I was a real Kulu criticiser. I hated him as a winger, but I always said that Juventus played him down the middle and we need to try him down the middle. But because of Madders and players like that, everybody was sort of like, well, we don't need him there, but he is so different as a midfielder. He's incredible. And Madders is playing so much better because he's got Kulu next to him. So for me, Kulu would be the first name on the team sheet at the minute. And then we're blessed. We've got Bentancur, but we've got Basuma still that can come on. We've still got Sarr. I was really worried about our midfield. And all of a sudden, it feels like it's such a strong midfield. We've got so many options, which is something that Spurs haven't had for a while.
Yep.
So, but that midfield against Manchester United for me was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Bentancur, I mean, if he gets banned, it looks like he's going to get banned, but what a shame, because he is playing some of the best football I've ever seen him play for us. But it almost feels a bit like Brennan Johnson, that he sort of thought, you know what, I've let them down. I've got something to prove. And he has been phenomenal as well. So I think we're really blessed, and people underestimate just how good our midfield is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think the problem that we've had, Mitch, is maybe prior to the Europa United game that we've not had the opportunity to be able to field the way the team we'd like them to. And in a way, like I say, I use that word stumbled. Maybe I'm being disingenuous by saying that and, not giving Ange the credit, because, not many managers would maybe, Mitch, be of the mindset to play both Kulusevski and Maddison together, because it is quite an attacking midfield when you think about, you've got Bentancur sitting in there. But I think the thing with me is that Bentancur, with no disrespect to Basuma, I think you can trust Bentancur that bit more when it comes to the concentration and when it comes to the engine of a running of a game. He doesn't tend to switch off. I think what we're seeing now is the Bentancur of the pre-ACL injury, where everything he does, it looks silky, it looks class. And I mean, it is a shame, like Kate says, we've got this ban hanging over him, because he will become Spurs' Thursday night man. I've got no doubt there'll be, at least in my opinion, I might be wrong here and we'll get Paul's opinion as well, I'd be surprised if it's not a 6-game minimum ban and it's just a case of how many more they may add on. So where are you, Mitch, in terms of the midfield? Because I think as fans, there's no harm to say it, we should be excited by the fact it looks like we've stumbled across what could be an exciting trio to come for the rest of this season.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the same sort of boat as Kate in terms of coming into the season. I thought we needed a bit of extra strength in the midfield area. I was a bit sort of disappointed that we didn't go out and sign someone to perhaps play in that number 6 role. I think purely because towards the end of last season, Bentancur didn't really look that great. Basuma was very, very inconsistent. Perhaps Sarr was okay, but I don't really see him in that role. So, it left a lot of question marks for me. However, this new system that Ange is playing with Bentancur behind Kulusevski and Maddison, it's really quite shocked me, because it shouldn't work. It really shouldn't work with how packed Premier League teams make that midfield area and how swamped the middle of the park is. But it just does. And I think a lot of it is down to the fact that Kulusevski's got such an engine on him and he's willing to work so hard for 90 minutes. You saw him in the Man United game. He's just still going in added time till the very last second, or until he's taken off. He's running his socks off, and I think that's just the player that he is, and that's the type of player he's always going to be. I don't think it's necessarily because he's massively, incredibly fitter than the rest of his teammates. I think it's just because he wants to win every ball and he wants to go forward at every opportunity and he wants to be involved, and that is also probably why he prefers playing through the middle than on the right-hand side on in that wider area. So, the midfield is taking a more positive turn, which we like to see. But obviously, as Tottenham fans, and as we can never have anything nice for too long, with Bentancur likely missing a few Premier League games soon. It's going to be a very interesting one. I mean, I think the obvious shout is that Basuma comes in and just straight swap for him for now. But I don't mind that, by the way. Like, I have no problem with that. But I'm still waiting to see Archie Gray in a midfield role. And I'm not saying that we should chuck Archie Gray in there straight away if and when Bentancur does have to sit out for a few games. But, you know, I watched him at right back against Karabag last week. I was at the game and I was sat there watching him, and I didn't think he had a bad game. I didn't think he had a bad game by any, sense of imagination. But I don't feel like he looked very natural and comfortable in that right back role. And the skill set that he has, and from what I saw from any games that I watched of Leeds last season or what I saw in pre-season this summer of him, I feel like he could be a really good asset in that midfield. But for some reason, Ange is very reluctant to play him there. It seems that leaving Jed Spence out of the Europa League squad is because he wants to play Archie Gray as that secondary right back when we want to give Pedro Porro a rest. And, it would just be a shame. It is a shame because Jed Spence, I think, is more than capable of doing a job, as we've seen, at left back or right back. Absolutely. I think he did a great job at left back against United again. So, yeah, it's a really, really strange one. And maybe I'm not going to call the Bentancur ban of blessings, guys, because it's not. But maybe that forces Ange's hand a little bit more in terms of he's still going to have to rotate that position. And, we may see a few newer and different things going forward. But, at the end of the day, if we're playing well and the midfield's playing well and we're winning games, then, Ange can do what he wants and I'll be on board with it. So
yeah, it's fair point. I mean, I think for Gray, he did play every minute of his Leeds career last season. That's fair to say. He was predominantly the right back for Leeds, but I think the eventuality is that the player himself wants to see a move to that midfield in the future. I think you make a good point there, Mitch, that maybe, because of the situation we found ourselves in the Europa League squad selection, which, to be fair, on the back of seeing Fraser Forster in the Coventry game, it even more baffles my mind, to be honest with you, that, I mean, not in a disrespectful way, I mean, how poor in calibre must Austin and Whiteman really be if we're selecting Fraser Forster in that Coventry game? I mean, Paul, I have to ask you on that. When you see that performance of Jed Spence at the weekend, you were there and you watched him in that second half come on for a doggy. The two things that struck me with that is that, number one, just how much trust Ange does have in Jed Spence for playing him at Old Trafford in a game that was 1-0, was no certainty supposed to go on and win that second half. And then secondly, I have to think, it's how crazy is it that this guy is not in our Europa selection, when I know obviously Spurs have got the opportunity when they come out of the group phase or the league phase to begin with, they can assert him back in. But I thought this is a real missed opportunity to not have Spence there, because great 45 minutes against United. And in reality, I'm thinking the guy's next real game time probably, I would say, will be Man City in the Carabao Cup. Unless he's waiting on an injury from a doggy or Porro. I mean, I don't want to bring on a downer, but are you surprised and, again, shocked at that time, Paul, where we didn't give Spence the opportunity of that European run?
Yeah, I thought it was a mistake, Ricky, and I haven't met a single Spurs fan who agrees with that decision, really. It's not hindsight, is it? It's all very well saying, well, now we've seen Jed Spence is playing well in the Premier League. Why isn't he in the Europa League squad? I think we all said it at the time. It was a weird decision. It's a very strange decision. And you go back to the summer when Brandon Austin was given a 5-year contract, and you think, well, that must mean he's now the second choice goalie. They must have some faith in him. But clearly Ange doesn't have faith in him if he's picking Forster. Forster was horrific, wasn't he, against Coventry, not to put too strong a point on it. And to leave Spence out of the Europa League squad, it just created so many problems. We're going to see it again on Thursday, aren't we? You would imagine that a doggy's got to be a doubt. If it's a quad problem again, that's what he had the operation on last year. So the last thing we need is to risk his quad. But yeah. Porro probably needs another rest because the fullbacks are the busiest people on the pitch, even though their roles, as you rightly said, have changed slightly in the last few games. So I think it was a very strange decision. When you've got Austin, you've also got Whiteman, and you've also got Luka Gunter, who's supposed to be a really good prospect. But to look at it from a positive point of view, isn't it great to see how Spencer's turned it around? We thought that his Spurs career was over. A few managers seem to have had issues with his attitude. Last summer, he left pretty soon after Ange got there, so I don't know if Ange had a proper look at him then, but he's fully integrated him, and he has shown he belongs at the Premier League level. You know, that second half on Sunday, as you say, was terrific. The way he creates space, that moving forward, and even though he's playing on the wrong side, you know, it means he's coming in on his better foot, on his right foot, if he's attacking in an inverted way, which I know we're not always doing now. But so the positive is he's proved he's good enough. But what a crying shame he's not going to get minutes in the Europa League. And if Udogie can't play at Brighton on Sunday, for instance, I don't think any of us would have any qualms to see him start at left back, even though he is naturally right-sided. So that's the big thing. To go back to Bentancur quickly, if I may, I do think a ban is justified. I think we have to take that on the chin. I don't think any of us can complain about that, because what he said was just unacceptable in 2024. You know, I would question why Enzo Fernandez is not facing a ban as well at Chelsea, for what he did was just as bad, it seemed to me. But I've been told there are reasons for that. But we've got to just take it on the chin. As we know, he'll be able to play in the Europa League. And as Mitch was saying, and you were saying, with Basuma, he's so stop-start, isn't he, that he plays a couple of games, he gets injured or he gets suspended. We had the stupid laughing gas thing. So I do think Archie Gray's going to get his chances there at number 6, isn't he? If Bentancur's facing a huge ban, I hope it's nearer 6 than 12. I think 12 would be very excessive. So I think Archie Gray will get his chance in at the number 6 position. But I do think Angie's sort of easing him in, isn't he? And I actually thought he looked okay against Karabag at right back, actually, Mitch. I know you said you weren't totally sure, but I thought he looked all right there. And clearly he's a hell of a talent. And I'm sure his time's going to come in his best position as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think the key thing, as we've seen with Bergvall, is that he wants to give these minutes and dip, obviously, in and out in terms of players and form. I mean, the thing with Bergvall is, you know, he was so devastated, as we saw, to obviously be coming off against Karabag. The great thing was, though, you saw that reaction. You know, comes on, immediate semi-assist for, obviously, Spurs' third in Dominic Solanke. That it just feels at the moment Spurs have got a really hungry group of players that all want to play. And that's really, really important. I think also the key is that when you look at maybe last season, the drop-off in terms of who's going to be coming on for those that are going off, it doesn't feel as substantial yet. Now, of course, that can always change due to injuries as well. We obviously are waiting on news of Heung-min Son. I mean, I think that's the biggest one at the moment for Spurs in terms of Heung-min Son and where we are with him, because I think it's fair to say that, you know, there was reservations about how much we would miss Son going into the United game. Of course, Spurs is captain. I think Son actually spoke about it in his pre-match presser, I think in the build-up to the Karabag game, where he just said, you know, the amount of game time we're playing is unsustainable. Just maybe sticking with you, Paul, on that with regards to Sonny and the playing time. Is that something you're worried about now? Because no disrespect to Sonny, he's on the other end of maybe where his career is going. With no disrespect, obviously he's coming towards the latter years. Is that something that both Spurs and him personally are going to have to monitor more closely? Because, I mean, it's fair to say this season we haven't seen the true best of Heung-min Son, which I don't think is any fault of his own. I just think it's been a lot of travelling in there. We take him all around the world, career and back, of course, for pre-season tours. Any concern about him at the moment, Paul, for you?
Yeah, a little bit actually. I think he's not been as great as he has been in previous seasons this year, has he? There's not been that explosive pace really, and the big question is whether that's a result of all the travelling he does and the amount of games he plays, as you said there, Ricky, or whether it's age. He's 32 now, or whether it's a combination of both, and he hasn't quite got that explosive speed that he used to have. I mean, that's far from writing him off. Obviously, he's still an incredibly valuable player, an incredibly important player. 2 goals against Everton, of course. I would like to see him start to miss those odd international trips, but he's very proud of representing his country, isn't he? I can't believe he's going to miss any. There's another international break coming up, and I just wonder if he can't play against Ferencváros and he can't play against Brighton. Does that mean he won't go off to Korea? I bet he does go to Korea, wherever they're playing. I'm not sure where they're playing in the next international break, but something's got to give there, really. It was interesting to say that he hasn't had any discussions yet over a new contract. We know it runs out next year, but there's a year's option, isn't there? I would have thought that there's still an absolute case for nailing him down to a couple of years. I really do, because he's such a big presence. He's become such a great captain, isn't he? That even though I do have concerns that he's not quite at his best, I think he's still a very important part of our short-term future and our medium-term future. But let's hope we can look after him, and let's hope really that even if he is fit to play in one of these next two games, he still doesn't go off on international duty, because he could really do with a couple of weeks off, and we could see the old Son back if only that could happen.
Oh, amen. No, I totally agree on that point. I think, again, it'll be interesting how Ange does manage that squad. Again, we have this Thursday to Sunday situation now, as we know, for some fans. I know that's a particular concern about how Ange does, in a way, deal with that, because I think if you, again, this is the unique first time if we go for our first break that we're in this situation where we've kind of got that long journey, obviously, over to Ferencvaros, and then we've got Brighton on the Sunday. So this will be the first real test about how Spurs do handle that away trip to then come back for a Premier League game. So we shall see what we are going to do. We are going to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. I'm delighted to say that we've got Bent's Hungarian journalist that is going to provide us a preview for this game. Now, I made an admission to you last week that for the first time in 7 years on Last One on Spurs, we did not have an opposition preview. I was not going to fail you for a second time in 7 years. We've got an opposition preview for you for our listeners that are on audio. We're joined by the brilliant Paul Newman, the superb Mitch Fretton, and the lovely Kate. Listen, Kate Boxall making her debut on Last One on Spurs, smiling. Doesn't happen often, smiling on Last One on Spurs, making your debut. They do happen. They do. They really, really do. Right, we are going to turn our attention to Ferencvaros for Spurs to come on Thursday, because European football is back on Spurs' calendar. They will travel to Hungary, of course, for Spurs' second game in the Europa League. Now, in terms of squad selection for this one, we know that as a result of his dismissal against Karabag, we know Radu Dragusin will miss out in terms of that trip to Budapest. Christian Romero will return to Spurs' Europa League squad after completing that final game of his European ban last Thursday. In terms of other news, again, it will be dependent on, obviously, of course, Heung-min Son's availability, but you will imagine he won't be risked for this one, given the fact that he is still nursing this apparent hamstring issue. You'd imagine there'll be a possible rest in there for Mickey van der Ven, which could open the door for Ben Davies to come back in and make an appearance. Again, you'd imagine there'll be rotation, but maybe not heavy rotation. A shame, as I said, that Jed Spence ineligible for this one. And there may be calls for Mikey Moore to get a start, because Mikey Moore, as Paul know from being there, Mikey Moore was inches away from scoring the fourth goal of the game against Manchester United. If that goes in, Paul, I'm not sure if you make it home, do you, Paul? if Mikey Moore puts the fourth goal in like that.
I know he's an incredible prospect, isn't he? I like the way he's being used at the moment. I do think it's good to introduce him for 10 or 15 minutes here and there, hopefully longer on Thursday. But I wouldn't start him on Thursday personally. I think just bring him on if we're 2 or 3 up by 60 minutes. Maybe he gets half an hour then, and it'll carry on building like that. But incredible prospect. It's very exciting, isn't it? And I love the way we are encouraging young players now. Again, we lost sight of that, didn't we, when we were under Mourinho and Conte? The last thing they wanted to do was give a chance to a young player. I think Mikey Moore's in safe hands now. The crowd was singing his name at the end. There was a lovely moment at the end when he was almost pushed forward to take the acclaim of the fans. Incredible talent, and that would have been the icing on the cake if he'd curled that last goal in, wouldn't it? But that goal will come, and I'm sure his minutes are going to increase as the season goes on, and he's going to be an incredibly important part of our future. He really is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, what I would just say is that we know, coming over to the UK, the clamour for players to start in the Europa League goes back to, obviously, Harry Kane, where obviously Harry under Maurizio was made to wait his turn. And there was those calls getting louder and louder and louder. And I just wonder, with no disrespect when I say this, when you have a player of Timo Werner in terms of his finishing that isn't up to speed at the moment, we go back to that performance against Manchester United at Old Trafford. I mean, look, what I will just say on Timo Werner is that you could argue that apart from the finishing, he did exactly what was asked of him. He stretches play. He gives Ange the option in terms of offering that raw pace. That does help Spurs in terms of that final third. But for me, it's an absolute damning indictment if we've got a player that, with no disrespect to him, that we're paying, I think, in the region of 150 per week, in terms of 150k per week in terms of wages, that a big part of football is finishing and putting the ball in the back of the net. And to some degree, if he's not doing that, that's a big, big concern. So those calls for Mikey Moore will get louder and louder because we know there's a guy of raw potential there. Where do you sit on that fence for you there, Kate? Because I would imagine, for me, I imagine Werner will play on Thursday because he needs game time, hasn't had a lot of it. So therefore, what do you do? We're kind of down if we do, we're down if we don't. Mike, I think, needs game time as well. Where are we in terms of that selection for you, maybe wing-wise, Mikey or Timo?
I think Werner plays. I think he starts 100%. I feel sorry for Werner. I can't help it. I don't feel sorry for the fact that he earns a ridiculous amount of money, but that's not his fault. But he did. I thought he had a reasonably good game. He crossed the ball in. He got in some good positions. He just can't finish his dinner. And I think he really is suffering from a crisis of confidence. I think if one of those goals go in, his whole season can change. And that's what I'm hanging on to. People might say I'm being optimistic there, but that's what I'm hanging on to. For me personally, I'd start Werner and give him 45, 50 minutes. And if it's not working, then put Mikey Moore on. He looks, he looks such a great prospect, but you don't want to chuck him in too soon. And you don't want to risk putting him in and him making a mistake and his confidence getting shot. So for me, I do think he'll start Werner. I think Werner needs... I'm no disrespect to the team that we're playing, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to say, because I've been trying and I can't say it. So, but
right.
I think
you leave it down to me, Kate, to humiliate myself. Don't worry about it. As long as you
can,
have
you
it, don't
do
worry
it.
about
It's your show. The thing is, this is the sort of game where you'd think, if Werner's going to score, he should get a goal here, and I think he desperately needs one of those goals. We saw it with Richarlison last year or the year before, where he really needed a goal and he got it, and his season turned around. So I'd put him in. I'd give him 50 minutes, 55 minutes. If nothing's happening or he's not doing anything, then get more on. We don't know if he's good enough, he's old enough, and we won't know how good he is until he gets his chance. So that's what I think he'll do.
Yeah, where are you, Mitch, in terms of this selection dilemma? Look, it doesn't have to be one or the other. They might both start. Who knows? But it does feel that those calls for Mikey will get louder and louder and louder, given the fact, again, he has that chance at the end at Old Trafford. He's a player that is fearless. He's looking for game time. He wants game time, hence why Ange just kept him around. He was actually asked about Mikey in terms of starting games in his pre-match presser. I think you have to look at it, was actually in a build-up to United, and he was asked a question to say, is Mikey in your mind still not available to start games in the Premier League? And he went, well, not necessarily. So, that in itself tells you he is in his forefront of thinking. Where are you, Mitch, in terms of that dilemma around Mikey Timo at the moment?
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. I'm starting Mikey Moore all day long. I was impressed with what he did against Manchester United at the weekend. I just want to see more of him. No pun intended.
Pun.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I'm not sure how well it would work. I would just start Werner on the right on his stronger foot and have Mikey Moore over on that left and still have Solanke up top. And then I'd probably just pack a few more strong players in and around him. And I think he's more than good enough to contribute to the team if he's got maybe a Maddison or a Kulusevski playing off or with him as well, or a Bentancur or Basuma, whoever it may be in midfield. It may be me being impatient, but I feel like I personally have seen enough in the limited amount of minutes that he's got to say that with no disrespect to Ferencvaros at all, because I'm not saying that, it's a guaranteed win, easy game, going to walk all over him. I'm not saying that. But I just personally think that Moore has the skill and is at the level to be able to be a contributor in that game and actually perform well. So, I think to be honest with you, Ricky, I think it's really personal preference. I completely understand, Kate's perspective saying, bring him on after maybe 50, 60 minutes, give him half hour. I think Paul said something similar as well. Absolutely, nothing against that. No problem if that is what happens. Just from my perspective, I'd start him. Brennan Johnson had to come off the bench against Coventry very early on. Played most of the game against Karabag and obviously against United. So personally, I would give him a rest. Start Timo on the right, Mikey Moore on the left, and then Solanke up top, like I said, with maybe a Kulusevski or Maddison in that sort of still attacking midfield role to have a bit of quality. He may not have the best game when he will get. There will come a time where Mikey Moore will get his first start for the club, whether it be on Thursday or whether it be later down the line. He may not set the world on fire. He may not, light up the stage and be the best player on the pitch. He's still a young kid, and it doesn't always work like that. Not everyone is your Lamine Yamal type players, your Phil Fodens when they're first getting introduced. But, just for me, personal preference, I would say it's the right time to start him.
Yeah, I
fair
mean,
point there.
sorry, Ricky. I was just going to
Go
say,
for it, Kate.
I'm not. I do agree with Mitch. I just personally don't think Ange would do that. I was talking from Ange. I think he starts Werner,
Yeah.
and I also, sorry, I would have to start Johnson. I think he's on such a rich vein of form. I just couldn't. I can't drop
Yeah.
him.
That's fine.
Well, I'm exactly the same with that, Kate, on Dominic Solanke. I think Dominic is in such fine form now that when you look at his general, 3-3, he's a poacher. I mean, look, I think this guy now needs, for me, continuous game time to really, build that confidence because, again, teams like Brighton are on the horizon. Of course, we've got tougher tests to come, West Ham as well after the international break that, for Dom, I think it's really important. I will be really surprised, actually, on this point, Paul, coming over to you. Would not be surprised if Dominic actually does get his first international call-up because you got Ivan Toney away, of course, in now Saudi. And you've obviously got this situation where, with regards to Dominic, he's at 3-3. Dare I say he gets another couple of goals for the international break. I feel like that's just a natural progression that he'll probably will get that call-up because he's a Tottenham player and he's scoring goals. I mean, so it could be a real good time now for Dominic to stay in the lineup, can still obviously contribute in terms of goals in terms of the next couple of weeks. Is that how you see it for you, Paul? Do you like to see Dominic start this game?
Yeah, I would, Ricky. I do think we have to go strong Europa League. I know there's more scope for error in the Europa League, isn't there, than the League Cup? Like everybody, I think in this show tonight, I thought we've made far too many changes against Coventry. Last week, I thought was the right mixture. Actually, I thought that the first Europa game was the right amount of changes and regular players. I would stick with as long as he's not in the red zone, as long as there's no concerns about his fitness. I would start both Solanke and Johnson on Thursday. I think, we know with this new group stage, if you win 4 or 5 games, you're guaranteed to be in the top 8. So I'd like to start strong, try and win our first 3 or 4, and then we know we're almost certainly in the next stage already. And then is the time to really rest people properly, I think. So as long as there are no fitness concerns, I'd start Solanke, I'd start Johnson. I think it's fantastic that Solanke scored 3-3 now. I thought he was a good signing at the start of the season, actually. That's not hindsight again. I thought he was the right person. I would have had him ahead of Toney. I know a few people thought he's Toney a better option, but I just thought he fitted in with Ange's system from all I heard of him. He did make one England performance off the bench once, did he, a few years ago, I think. I think he's a full international, actually, I think. But I do. There's got to be a case that he gets picked for the squad on Thursday. I think they're naming it on Thursday, so he won't get another chance to score goals before that squad's name. But every chance he'll be there, and I think he's going to score more than 20 goals this season. I really do. His work off the ball is fantastic, isn't it? And his pressing
is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
He's strong. He's a poacher. Works hard for the rest of the team, and been very impressed with him. And obviously, he was injured in that first game, and it was ludicrous, really, that people criticised him so quickly. And Ange was making a sarcastic comment about that on Sunday, wasn't he? But it
confidence, crisis of confidence, 180 minutes.
180 minutes. It just shows how quick we are to judge these days. But he's coming good now, and the ideal situation, of course, is if he starts on Thursday, he scores 1 or 2, we're 3 or 4 up by 60 minutes, and then Will Lancashire could get half an hour, and the same for Mikey Moore. I would start Werner, actually, but I'd like us to be 3 or 4 up. Then the kids can have longer than they've had so far. That's my ideal scenario for Thursday.
I mean, you know why, Paul? There's been this concern around strikers because our bloody record: Postiga, Rebrov, Janssen, Soldado. I mean, we've got to be the most unlucky club of going in the market and buying forwards, aren't we?
Absolutely. Well, if Soldado had been a success, Harry Kane might not got a chance, remember. So I look on that one as blessing in disguise. But Soldado was a big disappointment. You mentioned Raziak on Sunday, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I mean, I think I killed the audience off when I said him, bless his heart.
Who was that bloke we got on loan once in the under David Pleat? When
oh my God,
you were mentioning that on Sunday, I thought I'm old enough to remember Andy Booth. We had Andy Booth on loan once. I'm the only person old enough. Thank God
Mitch weren't alive for that one. Mitch, you have to worry about him.
So
I won't say about the Stuart Nevercott, bless his heart. My God, Stuart in defence, Paul.
It's going over my head. Sorry, fellas.
We won't age him too much, Paul.
There's a few names we could come up with, but no, I think we really have got the real deal here now. I don't want to put the mockers on him, but we've got our Kane replacement, and again, I'm now very confident he's going to have a fabulous career for us.
thing is, we'll sit there and moan going, oh no, he's in the England squad. But then everyone will think, well, we haven't got any representation in the England squad. But I think they've got Finland and Greece in there. So, I mean, they're two, I'd say, nicer games to play rather than kind of hard-hitting top 6, top 10 countries that we'll have to face. So, I mean, for Dom, it might be great for his confidence. I just wonder what we'll do, Kate, when it comes to the defensive selection, because no Radu Dragusin, as we know, was suspended for this one. You've got Mickey van der Ven, who I think Mickey needs a rest. You know, I think Brighton on Sunday, I joke with Mitch, I call it the Highline Derby. I think his hamstrings, my God, what are they going to be like after Brighton when we play them? I just think, you know, that might be an opportunity to rest Mickey. But again, you're going to have to probably partner then the likes of Romero and Ben Davis at centre half. I mean, Kate, you got a feeling on what they might do defensive wise, and obviously you've got the situation around a doggy who Ange took off as a precaution against United with a issue around the quadriceps. Thoughts, Kate, for you defensively, what we'll do?
I don't think Udogie will play. I think Van der Ven will start. I do. I think Romero, Van der Ven, Davis and possibly Archie Gray may be the back four, and then hopefully get the game won early and then be able to take off the likes of Van der Ven and give them a rest. But, you know, this is a massive game. And again, it's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. If he plays too weak, what they class as a weak team, he will get slated. If he risks playing our best team and someone gets injured, he gets slated. So he's on a good hiding for nothing, really. But for me, I've just got a feeling he might put those two out and hope that we can, like I say, win the game quickly and then sort of be able to rest them. I'll be well happy with that. I know Van der Ven, I mean, the thought of him getting injured, I can't bear it. I'd love to wrap him up in cotton wool and bubble wrap. But, you know, we need to take these games seriously and try and win them quickly like we did against Man United, come out the traps nice and fast. So hopefully if he does start him, he can sort of get a half hour and then come off and rest and we win comfortably. But this is Spurs. Do we ever win comfortably? I know Sunday we did, but there was still part of me that thought if they score, the wheels get a fall off, you know?
We all feel like that, Kate.
Exactly.
I'm sure Paul felt like that in the 89th minute, Paul, didn't you? Was it ever sewn up, Paul, when you're there at Old Trafford?
No, I was actually sitting next to my former boss, who is a big United man, and he was saying, "No, it's all over. You're all over. It's all over." So I said, "No, we're not. No, we've got to get 3 or 4 before we can relax." And when we were 2 up, they had a good little spell, didn't they? And I could sense everybody of a Spurs persuasion panicking, really. But we dealt with it. You know, they had a few corners, but they didn't really put too much pressure on Vicario, and it's been great to see he's looked a lot more solid the last couple of games, hasn't he, in coming out and taking the crosses and what have you. And then they brought Christian Eriksen on for it to take a set piece and hit it straight at the first man. So that made me chuckle a bit. That took me back a few years.
Something never changed.
Yeah, even though I'm a big Eriksen fan, but that was his one problem, wasn't it? But no, there was a spell when it looked like they might, if they could nick a goal, they were going to get back in the game, and the crowd got behind them. To be fair to the Old Trafford crowd.
They did.
I was just I was getting slightly twitchy. But then Solanke gets the third, and we're home and hose really then, aren't we? And it was even we couldn't muck it up from there.
No, not even us. Listen, what we are going to do, we are going to squeeze in our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. For our watching audience again, thank you so much for your support. Nearly over 3,000 of you watching us live. Look, as always, can't thank you enough for all your support for the show. A reminder, if you need one, look, we've been banging the drummer in last one on Spurs, Alan, Lee McQueen, Jason McGovern and co. And we are delighted once again to be finalists for the upcoming Football Content Awards in quite a few categories, actually. But the one we're predominantly pushing you, if you can help us get over the line, is Best Podcast in the Premier League. Now, Crackers has been telling you all week. I'm telling you all week as well. This is at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, right? We've got the opportunity with you beautiful, lovely, wonderful people that listen and watch this show week upon week, episode upon episode. Can you help us win a trophy at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? If we can't do this, we've got absolutely no chance. Just in general, you guys have been amazing, supporting us so many years. I care to think back. God, I felt 20 years younger when we started this bloody show. I tell you, Jason McGovern will tell you as well. But look, we are finalists there at the FCA's in the Best Podcast Awards. For those that are watching the show live on the rerun back, you can hit that QR code, which will take you straight there to vote for us in the Best Podcast category. And for those on the audio, you can obviously find that link in our episode description. But again, it's down to you amazing people that have made that happen for second year in a row. Blessed to be there among some amazing company. and that we can't thank you enough for your support for the show. Honestly, we're overwhelmed by the love we get, and I've got to say that, yeah, it's a blessing doing it. What I will say, tough after defeats. I'm not going to lie to you. Tough after defeats, but it's a blessing, like I say, when you have a victory like against Man United at Old Trafford, it's all the pleasure. And I know Crackers, bless him, is already looking at Box Park, or should I just say the Spanish version of that is Spurs do get to the Europa League final. So we'll see you somewhere. I don't know where we'd be if Spurs do end up winning a trophy. I'm not sure if I can bust before I have to do a show in that nature. If we actually do win a trophy, forgive me for all my sins. But look, just to put perspective on the team Spurs are facing in terms of Ferencváros, it for Spurs will be the opportunity to win their 5th game in a row, and they are at present the Hungarian champions. They're a side that Spurs have never faced before, but interestingly, Ange Postecoglou has come up against them twice in his managerial career, leading former club Celtic to a 2-0 home win and a 3-2 away victory in the 2021-2022 Europa League group stage campaign. Now, since winning their 6th domestic title and their 35th in their history, they finished a comfortable 16 points ahead of their nearest challengers. They won 10, they drawn 2, and lost 2 of their last 14 competitive matches across all competitions at the start of this campaign. They narrowly missed out on qualifying for the Champions League early this term after suffering a 3-1 defeat aggregate to FC Midtjylland in the 3rd qualifying round, but they secured their spot in the newly expanded Europa League thanks to a 3-2 penalty shootout triumph over Bosnian side Barak Banja in the playoff round following a 1-1 draw over 2 legs. You know what? You've got a case sometimes to underestimate these sides because, I mean, I thought I remember our Europa League campaigns. God, I'm trying to think back now. And forgive me, guys. You know, I'm having to go back in my memory here. These aren't pretty. Lask, Dynamo Zagreb. Only Spurs could lose to a manager that was in jail. I mean, under Jose Mourinho, a serial winner. I mean, what a football club. What a football club. I mean, you got Antonio Conte, God help him, in the Champions League, playing to AC Milan, thinking a 0-0 draw will do us enough and we need to score. I mean, only at Tottenham can we have this. But look, we're front-footed. Ange Postecoglou's at the helm. Mitch, we're facing the Hungarian champions. Anything to fear? Or do you think these games like this, because it's bizarre, when I take my mind back, these were kind of really non-entertaining fixtures, if you remember, in the Europa League. It was almost like the players didn't really fill up for it. And the fact we've obviously got off to a good spot in terms of having the initial 3 points against Karabag, a real opportunity that if we win this, really, we're taking quite a commanding position already very early on in the Europa League. Would you agree, Mitch?
Yeah, very crucial to win this game. And I think that's something Ange will be aware of. Do we have much to fear in this? I always say Tottenham only have themselves to fear. You know, unless you're going to a Liverpool away or a City away or something like that. You know, there's no point sugarcoating it. It's a game that Tottenham should be winning, and if they play to their level, will win. But you know, we know that that's not necessarily always the case. And I think Ange is very much the type of person that will never underestimate an opponent. And that is a very good trait that I like about him. He will put as much preparation into this game as he would have done for the United game on Sunday. You know, he'll do his research. Probably helps that he has, as you mentioned, faced them twice before in his managerial career. I'm just reading the comment that you've put up there as well. Could be a very hostile atmosphere. You know, it's if that's the case and they've got their stadium rocking, it always makes things harder, no matter who the team are and no matter what their level is. If the crowd is right on your back from the very first whistle, then the players will feel that on the pitch, and the pressure just always ramps up in those circumstances. But as we've said, winning the game puts us in a really, really good position. You know, for a team like Tottenham, naturally you want to be and should be qualifying in that top 8 to avoid that playoff game and go straight through. And the earlier we can cement ourselves in those top 8 places, the more when we get further down the line into, you know, November's, December's, and I think it's early January, the last game is with this new format. Then you can look at heavier rotation if we've already perhaps secured that spot or got to where we need to be. So, you know, while it's still early in the season, especially, you know, against the teams that we're favoured against, we've got Galatasaray away to come. We've got Roma at home to come. We've got Rangers away to come. They are 3 really tough tests that we're going to have. So, yeah, for me, it's a crucial game. And that's why, you know, I agree with what the others said about going strong in terms of the starting lineup, albeit maybe a couple of different faces in there from the weekend, and yeah, hopefully, Ricky, it's a very straightforward Thursday evening. But I'll leave you to tell me whether that's going to be whether you think that's going to be the case or not.
Oh, don't put it in my hands, Mitch. For God's sake, don't do that to me, please. We'll come around to Kate. Kate, looking at the situation that they've had before, actually, Ferencvaros, they've only lost once in their previous 10 European home games against English opposition. You have to go back to losing to Leeds United 3-0 in 1969. So they are a side, look, depending on how you view their European heritage, that aren't used to suffering many defeats on home turf to English sides. They've actually got, my understanding, a clean bill of health. Of course they would have a clean bill of health for this one. Players returning. Of course they are. Tottenham. What would you make of it, Kate? Anything to fear? And again, I suppose to touch on Mitch's point there, in terms of the hostility, this is an interesting test. If we are going to play a back four that aren't used to playing together, we actually saw how much that maybe affect us against Coventry, not having that fluidity in there. Is that a bit of a risk, Kate, in a game that, do you agree, win it and we put ourselves in a real commanding position in terms of the league and the way that's formatted this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I agree with what Mitch said, that Ange doesn't underestimate anybody. That's why I think he'll go strong at the back and play Van de Ven and Romero. But I think we should be confident going into this game. I'm sorry, I don't watch the Hungarian league, so I can't say I'm an expert on this team. However,
You're kidding, Kate. You don't watch it. What?
No, not the Azerbaijan league last week either. I'm not going to lie and say I do, because I don't. But the thing is, because we've lost to so many teams that we should have beaten in the past, I think Spurs suffer from PTSD a little bit. So we're all a bit scared to say, yeah, we're going to win this one. But I'm confident. I think we should be brushing past this team. I really do. I saw someone in the chat say that they would be sort of a top 6 championship team. For me, I'm not overly concerned. I think we win this relatively comfortably. Ange won't allow the players to sit on their laurels. He'll tell them, you treat these like you would any other team. You go out and you get the job done. And I think that's what we do. I'm confident about this. And like you say, it puts us in a massively strong position going forwards. Yeah, I've been ultra positive tonight. It must be something in the air.
I love that. I love the comments from the viewers. How dare our guests? Why are they not checking out the Hungarian Azerbaijan leagues? I mean, we've got to cope with Spurs enough week to week. We can't be focusing on other leagues. God, we have no time. We have no hair left, or we have nothing left. I tell you, we have nothing left at all. Paul, it's interesting in terms of how Spurs will gear up for this one. Brighton on Sunday. I think one of the biggest things, Paul, I think we've always, to some degree, had a struggle with is being able to play on a Thursday and then still be able to keep the team we want relatively fresh for the Sunday, and just how we navigate that, because it's a Brighton side that, with all due respect to Brighton on Sunday, don't want to get a two away from that in terms of we got Ferencvaros first. But do you think that will play on Ange's mind in terms of selection for Brighton with this one, or do you think Ange is really about always the next game, not getting too high ahead of himself and thinking about Brighton on Sunday?
Well, firstly, you were talking about losing your hair there, Ricky, but I've been watching Spurs for 51 years, so you can see this. You can see the result of that, can't you? But
no wonder you love Jason.
Yeah, that's right. That's why he's my favourite. He's been watching them almost as long as I have. Yeah, that's why we the two baldies on the paddle. But it's an important competition, isn't it? We all know. I know what you've said about winning the cups, and we all agree we're desperate to win a cup. We've not got this competition right at all, have we? In the last 20 years, however long we've been playing in the Europa League, where we've been in there quite a few times, haven't we? And we just haven't got it right. And you've mentioned a few of the biggest cock-ups we've had, in particular the manager who was in jail. But it's got to be a priority. I was there when we won the UEFA Cup in 1984. It's frightening to think that was 40 years ago. And that was huge. It was one of my biggest memories, happiest memories as a Spurs fan. This is the UEFA Cup. This is an important competition. But it is a balancing act. And I thought he got it absolutely right last Thursday. As I mentioned earlier, I think he got the amount of changes right. We do have to worry. We do have to protect Van de Ven, don't we? We do have to protect Udogie, because the last thing we need is for either of those two to pick up an injury again. I agree with Kate, and I think he'll go Romero, Van de Ven, and I think Ben Davies will have to be at left back, because there's no one else really, isn't there, with Spence not being in the squad. And then it's a question if he rests Porro or plays Archie Gray. But I think he will go pretty strong. Brighton, it's a big game on Sunday, obviously it is, but other teams have managed to do this. We've seen Chelsea win the Europa League, we've seen Man United win the Europa League. They've been able to do it, and there's no reason why we shouldn't really. I think we've got the squad now. We just got to be careful. We just hope we don't hit any more injury problems, because it's always, with this high intensity football, it's always the worry, isn't it? But Ben Davies has been fine, I think, in the 2 cup games he's played this year. I think he's been very solid. We've said it before, haven't we? What do you call him, 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or whatever it is? But
I do call him 6 out of 10, Ben. I do call him that, Paul. Steady Ben. So he is steady Eddie, isn't he? Just steady Eddie.
Gentle Ben, yeah. He's an important. I think he plays an important role for us in the cup competitions he's going to this year. So he has to play. But Ange will take it seriously, as we've all said. I'm sure he will, and it's got to be a priority. Not only would we win a trophy, and an important trophy if we win it, but it's Champions League qualification as well, isn't it? Without worrying about the top 4. So I'd certainly take 6th place and the Europa League victory, lifting the Europa League this year. I really would. So Thursday's big, as Mitch said. Win the games early, get qualification guaranteed, and then in those last 2 or 3 league games, we can really put out the kids then and save the big boys for the Premier League.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Just in terms of selection, one thing we do want to bring to the attention, and for those that haven't seen any news on this, that friend of the show, Paul O'Keefe, has confirmed that Wilson Odobert is likely to be out for another 6 weeks plus in terms of where we are at the moment. So that would mean, on that basis, if you look at the fixtures he will miss in these next 6 weeks, that will include Brighton away, West Ham at home, AC Alkmaar at home, Palace away, Man City in the, obviously, of course, Carabao Cup at home, Villa at home, Galatasaray away, and Ipswich at home. That takes us to around the 10th of November. So a lengthy period to be about Wilson Odobert, who, again, I think we saw promising signs that it's a young player, raw potential, but a player that will really know, I think, game time to get up to speed with the way Ange wants to play. So it's a bit of a blow, that is. And again, whether people like that or not, it will mean that Timo Werner will definitely be used in terms of these Europa games for sure. I just wonder, guys, we've not had a chance really just to quickly react on the Carabao Cup draw, which has now got a confirmed date of the 30th of October, an 8:15 p.m. kickoff. God, they're not the most kindest with the times. I mean, bit of a bizarre kickoff time there. You guys know what this cup means to me, so I'm gonna bore you with my views. But in terms of everyone else's views on that, Mitch, Carabao Cup draw now with a confirmed date. How important is that competition? How important is that game? And I wonder, interestingly, Pep, before drawing Spurs, said there's absolutely no way that I'll be able to play my preferred first 11. They're without Rodri for the season. How do you see us lining up for that one? Do you feel we'll see a lot more of a stronger lineup, being at home, being against the Premier League champions, being Spurs are at the lane in a cup competition? Fill with some optimism, Mitch.
Yeah, I'll believe Pep when I see it, Ricky. with his words there. We'll see. But yeah, look, I was at the game against them in the FA Cup, where we lost and we drew them in the 4th round there, and it was just a pretty rubbish game. And I'm really struggling to make something of it, because I saw the draw and I didn't even react, because I knew that we were going to get someone. I knew that we would get someone. I think the only plus side of us drawing City is that we are at home. I know they got their first win, first couple of wins, I guess, against us last season at our place. But the one thing I would say is we know we can beat Man City, and we have beaten Man City, and we've beaten Pep Guardiola plenty of times, during his time in charge there. So, if he does stick to his guns and he does put out a weaker side, naturally it's not going to be easy, because City's squad is utterly ridiculous. But you would hope that, because it's a big draw, it's a big team at home, the date and time kickoff and stuff is a bit annoying for fans that want to go to the game, because I was having a look at it myself. I'm not too sure I'll be able to with that kickoff time, but you'd hope that it will draw a big crowd, the occasion will grow, and it should hopefully be a good game. And for that reason, you'd hope at least Ange will put out a much stronger team than he did against Coventry, because I think a few people may just disapparate into thin air if he puts out the same lineup that he did against Coventry, against City. But do you know what? It is what it is at the end of the day, isn't it? The draw is the draw. You have to beat teams that are of a decent level if you want to win the trophies. So let's just go for it, and we'll play our football, we'll play our philosophy, we'll attack them, and I think you just have to sit there and say what will be.
Yeah,
If
that's
there's
fair.
no shame in losing to City ever, really is there. So, it makes when you do beat them even sweeter. And
Yeah.
I'll always have hope and faith that we can beat them. And I very much hope that this is another one of those occasions as well.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I think the thing, Kate, is when you cast our mind back to that FA Cup clash of last season, I think the biggest frustration that really Spurs didn't lay a glove on City. Now, you could credit City for the fact that they really, in footballing terms, suffocated Spurs on the night, and they, of course, done us by a set piece. Vicario ended up in the back of his own net. We won't go back there at the moment because it looks like Vicario is just turning the corner. I mean, look, we want to keep it upbeat as much as we can. How do you feel, Kate, about that draw now being confirmed? And obviously, we've got a now date for it. Do you feel Spurs can do it on the night? How do you feel that will play out for you, that cup game?
Well, look, you've got to beat the best to be the best. We all know that, and City are the best. But I would imagine that City are maybe not quite as unhappy, but I wouldn't think that we're their ideal choice to draw because we are one of their bogey teams. There's no doubt about it. If we've got a full squad and we go strong, I think if we play like we did against Man United, I think people will expect us to do it, but I think City won't because most people change how they play against City because of how good they are. I think we could take them by surprise, and I don't see why we can't beat them if we play like we did against United. Obviously, they're going to be a completely different opposition. They're sensational, but they aren't the same team without Rodri. It's as simple as that. He is the leader of that team. Everything good goes through Rodri. He's my favourite player in the league, if not the world. I think he's sensational. So why not? I don't see why we can't beat him. The time is rubbish. But, it is what it is. There's no point moaning about it. We just got to go out there, do our thing and hope for the best. Like Mitch says, there's never any shame in losing to Manchester City. But I just hope if we play our way and give a good account of ourselves, I don't see why we can't get a result.
Yep. You know what's interesting on this, Paul? That, I mean, again, to quote Jason, bless his heart, he always says to me, to win a domestic cup or any cup competition in terms of England, you're going to have to always beat the likes of a Chelsea, a Liverpool, a City, United or an Arsenal. There isn't any really easy one. When you look at, I think, the last 10 years of this competition, I think 90% of the time it's been won by one of those teams that have finished in the top four. Therefore, is it just a case, Paul, as Mitch says, you've got to just be ready to face whoever comes your way in the draw and you just got to take it on?
Absolutely. I'm glad we're at home. I think that is important. It gives us a much better chance of winning this, obviously. But, going back to what Pep said about he wouldn't be able to put out a full first choice side, I think in that same press conference, he said something like, so I'm going to have to give chances to Foden and Grealish, so they're not exactly the worst, are they? So we know City are going to be strong. The one thing I would certainly say is we won't win it if we make 9 changes again, like we did against Coventry, and Fulham last season. I think Ange has got to get that blend of change and regular players, more like the Europa League if we're going to beat City. And I'd also say if he plays Fraser Forster, I don't think we'll win, even if he plays the rest of the first choice players. I'm not worried about him actually as a backup goalie. If Vicario got an injury, I think we're in trouble for the rest of this season. So I think Vicario has to play. If we play a similar sort of strength team as we do in the Europa League, I think we've got a chance. Why not? And as you say, you've got the League Cup is generally won by one of the big 4 or 5 teams, isn't it? Now it's rare that anybody else wins it, but why shouldn't that be us? We're one of the big 4 or 5 teams. So we've got to treat that fixture very very importantly. 2008 it's not acceptable, is it? The last trophy, the last time we won anything, and that was the League Cup. It was a bit worrying again. The fans forum last week when you hear Daniel Levy asked to choose his 3 highlights from his 20 years in charge, and he didn't even mention the one trophy he's won in that time. So maybe that was an oversight. Maybe he made a mistake there. But again, you think the board still don't get it, do they? They don't get how important it is for us to win a trophy. And I know it's always a balancing act. And I know if you start getting injuries, it's very hard to put out a first choice team for every game. But we really do have to treat it with a lot more respect than we did the Coventry game. Otherwise, we're going out next round.
Do you think, Paul, by the fact that Ange doubled down on the fact that he always wins a trophy in his second season, that does give more of an emphasis on the cup competitions in general, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Europa League? How do you view those comments in light of these cup competitions? Is that a benefit or a hindrance to come out and say that? Does that heap a bit more pressure on him to deliver a trophy?
Yeah, you would hope so. It does really, doesn't it? When he said it, I winced a little bit when I heard him say it. You know, somebody that worked in the media, I thought, oh, that's going to be held against him. That is, but he was getting quite tetchy, wasn't he? He can be a little bit tetchy in those after match interviews if the game hasn't gone well. And I think it was a result of that, really. I know he said on the following press conference, I don't know what all the fuss was about, but he did sort of make a rod for his own back there. But it's fact, isn't it? He has won something in his second season, and I think that will influence his team selection. That's why I was so surprised he did make so many changes against Coventry. Actually, I thought, oh, has the Spurs philosophy rubbed off on him, really? But you get through Man City in the next round, and what are we 3 games away from winning the trophy? Then, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, so don't get me excited.
Surely he'll see that, and I very much hope he'll see that. And I didn't know about Odebear actually, but Paul O'Keefe is obviously very well informed. I'm sure that's correct. Yeah. That's a blow because you need everybody fit. If we're going to start losing players to injury, and as we've said before, you will lose players to injury in Ange's system. Then that's my biggest concern about us playing as a strong side against City and a strong side for the rest of the Europa League group games. But it does need to be done. We need to put out the strongest side possible. We really do.
We do. Right, guys, it's prediction time. I'll get predictions from you for both if you don't mind. We'll do Ferencvaros and then we'll do Brighton. No pressure. 2 predictions, eh? They'll never remember. Kate, we'll start with you, the debutant, because when you next come on,
thanks.
They would have forgotten by then.
Thanks. I think
in Europe... what a debut it's been. You've been amazing. And she's been amazing. Wonderful Kate. Bless her. Amazing. Kate, thank you so much for having you back on. Kate, predictions, go for it.
I think in Europe we go 3-0 again. Another 3-0 win. I think is that
another
3 in a row?
3 clean sheets in a row.
I'm going clean sheet. Yes, I am. I'm going all out. I think we'll see Johnson score again, and I think we'll see Solanke score again as well. And I don't know about the third. And quite frankly, I don't care. As long as we win, that's all that matters. And Brighton, I think, is going to be an absolutely crazy game. Could be really any score, but I'm going 4-2 to Spurs.
Oh, wow. Goals galore.
Yeah, and I'm going Johnson and Solanke to keep scoring, and everyone to be all the doubters, all the haters to be going, wow, do you know what? Ange's doing something here. He's cooking, and keep the faith. That's what I say. So yeah, 2 wins for me.
We've gone from not scoring for Kate saying we've got 7 goals coming in the next 2 games. I was at about 20 plus in the last 3 weeks. It's gone from one into another. Life as a Spurs fan, never a dull moment. Kate, you've been amazing. Mitch, let me come over to you, mate. Always a pleasure, Mitch. You'll be back on for us. We've got games coming thick and fast, we know. Thoughts, Mitch, on those couple of games to come, prediction-wise, what we're going for?
Yeah, I'm going to follow in a similar pattern to Kate in terms of scoring plenty of goals. I'm going to go 3-1 on Thursday. I think I'm gonna chalk for clean sheet because it seems too good to be true with the way that we play. And 3 clean sheets in a row. You say no, that's not going to happen, surely. But I'm gonna go 3-1 for that. And then I really think that game against Brighton is going to be absolute chaos. I really, really do. So I'll go for another win because I hate predicting anything else really. I'm gonna go 3-2. For that game, just pure chaos, but 3 points in both matches.
I love that, Mitch. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, I think we're criticised for having Van der Ven in the place that he's at. They've got Lewis Dunk in the same situation, Brighton, on their way. What would we be like if we were Brighton fans on a podcast? We would be going absolutely nuts. We would be going crazy. Mitch, positive predictions. We can't thank you enough. I've got to say, make sure you go and check Kate out. She's got her own channel, Just a Girl Love Spurs. Make sure you're following her. Make sure you're following Mitch for his takes on all things Tottenham. Paul, it has been far too long. We're going to change things up. We're going to have you back involved more this season. Paul, 2 big games to come. Give us your predictions. It's been lovely having you back on.
Well, I'm tempted to say exactly the same as Mitch. Actually, that was my thinking. But I'm going to go slightly different. I think we'll win 3-1 on Thursday. I do think we'll score 3 goals, but we'll concede 1. And I just hope Vicario's in goal because if he's not, then I'd be worried about 3-1.
I was going to ask you, Paul, just on that point, before actually on that point, do you think now Vicario is the Europa League keeper, or do you think that may change depending on our progression in the group?
I think it's the latter, Ricky. Yeah, I think he's the goalkeeper as long as a qualification is not guaranteed. But I think he wants to make a strong start in this tournament. You know, let's win our first 4 or 5, or at least not lose them. And then I think that means we're almost certainly there, doesn't it? So I think he plays until it's pretty much guaranteed that we're qualified, and hopefully that will leave the other goalkeepers to play in the last 3 games, and I wouldn't make it Forster either. I'd give Austin a go and even Luca Gunter a go if we've already qualified for the next stage. But on this occasion, I expect him to play on Thursday, and I very much hope he does. And I think we'll win 3-1. And then on for the Highline derby, even though it's going to probably be bonkers, I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. I think it's not going to be quite. I was tempted to say 3-2 like Mitch, but I think 2-1 Spurs, 2 victories, but we concede in both games. That's my belief.
Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on. For those that want to find you, Paul, where can they find you on the socials?
I'm pretty much retired now. So it used to be all cricket on Twitter, but it's not so much cricket now. There's still some cricket, but hopefully there's a fair dollop of Spurs as well. It is Paul_Newman 66, and that's not how old I am. That was the year I was born. So it's Paul_Newman 66 on both Twitter and Instagram. And thank you very much for having me on again. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting Kate and Mitch.
Paul, you're an absolute star. We've given our social media editor a slap on the wrist because he's put you down as under Paul_Newman on our social. So that'll be changing when the show does go live for everybody on our platforms in, of course, the Wednesday morning, where you can build up to Ange Postecoglou's presser of the news surrounding, all the latest on Heung-min Son, and I'm sure we'll get an update on Wilson Odebear as well. But it is a case now where games are coming thick and fast. We have got that frustrating international break just around the corner, which makes this week even more really important that Spurs can go into that international break with another 3 points in Europe, finishing well against Brighton, where the opportunity then becomes really, we look in a much more significant position league-wise, where it starts to get really, really tight up the top. So it could be a really, really good week ahead. I want to say again a massive thank you to our watching audience. Nearly over 4,000 of you have watched this show live. Again, thank you so much for all incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. It's been a pleasure. Paul Newman, Kate from Just to Go Love Spurs, and Mitch Fretton. Make sure, like I say, guys, you check these wonderful people out. They'll all be back on very, very soon. From us all here, please keep safe, keep well,